of 101 famous poems. The Deacon's Masterpiece, or the One-Hoss-Shay, by Oliver Wendel Holmes. Spoken and with commentary by E.T. Hansen. Have you heard of the wonderful One-Hoss-Shay that was built in such a logical way? It ran 100 years to a day, and then of a sudden but stay. I'll tell you what happened without delay, scaring the parson into fits, frightening people out of their wits. Have you heard of that, I say? 1755. Georgius Secundus was then alive, snuffy old drone from the German hive. That was the year when Lisbon town saw the earth open and gulp her down, and Braddock's army was done so brown, left without a scalp to its crown. It was on the terrible earthquake day that the Deacon finished the One-Hoss-Shay. Now, in building of chaises, I'll tell you what, there was always somewhere a weakest spot. In hub, tire, felloe, in spring or thill, in panel or crossbar or floor or sill, in screw, bolt, thoroughbrace, lurking still, find it somewhere you must and will, above or below, or within or without. That's the reason, beyond a doubt, a chase breaks down, but doesn't wear out. But the Deacon swore, as deacons do, with an I do them and a I tell you, he would build one shay to beat the town, in the county and all the country round. It should be so built that it couldn't break down. For, said the Deacon, 'tis mighty plain that the weakest place must stand the strain, and the way to fix it, as I maintain, is only just to make that place as strong as the rest. So the Deacon inquired of the village folk where he could find the strongest oak that couldn't be split, nor bent, nor broke, that was for spokes and floor and sills. He sent for lancewood to make the thills. The crossbars were ash from the straightest trees, the panels of whitewood that cuts like cheese, but lasts like iron for things like these. The hubs of logs from the settler's ellum, last of its timber, they couldn't sell 'em. Never an axe had seen their chips, and the wedges flew from between their lips. Their blunt ends frizzled like celery tips. Step and prop iron, bolt and screw, spring, tire, axle, and linchpin too, steel of the finest, bright and blue, thoroughbrace bison skin, thick and wide, boot, top, dasher from tough old hide, found in the pit where the tanner died. That was the way he put her through. There, said the Deacon, now she'll do. Do? I tell you, I rather guess she was a wonder and nothing less. Colts grew horses, beards turned gray, Deacon and Deaconess dropped away. Children and grandchildren, where were they? But there stood the stout old One-Hoss-Shay, as fresh as on Lisbon earthquake day. 1800 it came and found the Deacon's masterpiece, strong and sound. 1800 increased by 10, handsome carriage they called it then. 1820 came, running as usual, much the same. 30 and 40 at last arrive. Then come 50 and 55. Little of all we value here wakes on the morn of its 100th year, without both feeling and looking queer. In fact, there's nothing that keeps its youth, so far as I know, but a tree and truth. This is a moral that runs at large. Take it, you're welcome, no extra charge. 1st of November, the earthquake day. There are traces of age in the One-Hoss-Shay, a general flavor of mild decay, but nothing local, as one may say. There couldn't be, for the Deacon's art had made it so like in every part that there wasn't a chance for one to start. For the wheels were just as strong as the thills, and the floor was just as strong as the sills, and the panels just as strong as the floor, and the whippletree neither less nor more, and the back crossbar as strong as the fore, and the spring and axle and hub encore, and yet, as a whole, it is past a doubt, in another hour, it will be worn out. 1st of November, 55. This morning the parson takes a drive. Now, small boys, get out of the way. Here comes the wonderful One-Hoss-Shay, drawn by a rat-tailed, ewe-necked bay. Hut up, said the parson, off went they. The parson was working his Sunday's text, had got to filthily, and stopped, perplexed, at what the Moses was coming next. All at once the horse stood still, close by the meetin' house on the hill. First a shiver, then a thrill, then something decidedly like a spill, and the parson was sitting up on a rock at 9:30 by the meetin' house clock, just the hour of the earthquake shock. What do you think the parson found when he got up and stared around? The poor old chaise in a heap or mound, as if it had been to the mill and ground. You see, of course, if you're not a dunce, how it went to pieces all at once, and nothing first, just as bubbles do when they burst. End of the wonderful One-Hoss-Shay. Logic is logic, that's all I say. How not to be perfect. Perfection. What a word. So beautiful and so terrifying at the same time. Such a promise of empowerment. If we could be perfect in what we do or in who we are, then nothing could stop us. Nothing could defeat us. It's a recipe for success, for eternal life. In America today, in the entire Western world today, we have more offers to become perfect than cereal boxes in the breakfast aisle. We can be the perfect mom, the perfect dad, the perfect employee, the perfect boss, the perfect Christian, the perfect liberal. We can have the perfect body, the perfect score, the perfect persona on social media. And for every kind of perfection there is, someone out there is willing to tell us how to do it. For a fee, of course. Perfection was the terror of my childhood. I grew up a Mormon. Mormonism is a very Protestant religion. We believed in hard work, in never sinning, and in being perfect. One of the scriptures we often heard in church was, "Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." That's quite a high standard. If you think keeping up with the Joneses is hard, try be as perfect as God. And we accepted it. We never stopped to think that it might be just a little bit unrealistic. We never wondered, if we were as perfect as God, would we still be human? It seems laughable now, but in my youthful arrogance, I took it seriously. I would make lists of the sins and imperfections I had to work on. It was a long list, let me tell you. Like one of those shopping lists your spouse makes when she's sick in bed and has nothing better to do but think up things for you to do. Sorry to bother you at work for the 5th time, but I just realized as long as you're at the mall to pick up groceries, can you stop by the music store and pick up a grand piano just in case I decide to take lessons online? Only much later in life did I realize that trying to be the perfect human being was making me less human. The more you try to be perfect in everything, the more you sharpen your eye for imperfections. You're working on, say, being perfectly honest, and you're almost there. You've almost reached the point where you are insulting everyone around you by telling them exactly what you think. And then you notice another imperfection. You don't exercise enough. You don't play an instrument. You spend too much time on your phone. You don't give enough to charity. And when you say hello to your neighbor on the street, you don't take enough time to listen to his or her problems. So you abandon the one imperfection, half perfected, and turn to the next. And pretty soon you're running around like a chicken without a head, from one imperfection to the next, until the only thing you can do perfectly is list off all your imperfections. When I look back now, it's not the imperfections that bother me, but the 2 or 3 things I could have done a little bit better. I'm a writer, so it's things like, I wish I had written more earlier. I wish I had devoted more time and self-discipline to my writing. I wish I had acquired a bigger vocabulary, and I wish I had written down my observations more regularly, like in a journal. That's 4 or 5 things I could realistically have done better. Then there are the things I wasted a lot of time trying to perfect, but don't care about now. I used to try to acquire healthy eating habits. Now I don't care about that. I have weaknesses and prejudices and hang-ups, dark places deep in my soul. Now I no longer try to exercise these faults, and I don't particularly care if people think I'm a good person or not. I used to try to understand and love all humanity, as a good Christian should. Now I admit to myself that there are some people I just don't like and who don't like me, and I no longer spend time in their general vicinity. Looking now at my list of imperfections, I realize that they fall into 2 categories. The things I now regret wasting my time on are things others told me to do. My teachers, my Sunday school teachers, people in the media, and personal improvement gurus. The other things, the things I now wish I had spent more time on, are things only I could tell myself to do. Imagine the funeral of the perfect man or woman. There stands his son in tears, trying to put what Dad meant to him into words. He was, well, I can't say what he was. He did everything equally well. I can't single out any one aspect of his life that tells me very much about him. I'm not sure I knew who he was. Now imagine your funeral. There stands your daughter, and she says, Mom never did make the most of that online piano course, but she loved gardening. She was constantly washing the dirt from under her fingernails. We fought sometimes, and I wish she had done some things differently, but when I think of her, I don't see those things. I see her surrounded by roses, azaleas, tulips, and carnations, and I feel like I knew her. I don't know if it's possible to be the perfect mother or father or husband or wife, but it's possible to be a pretty good mother or father or husband or wife. I don't think it's possible to excel at accountancy and understand philosophy and run a marathon and speak 3 languages and have great friendships with workers, students, intellectuals, and leaders of men, and also be able to repair the house and the car and invent the better mousetrap. But I do believe it's possible to do 2 or 3 of those things well. And which of those things we choose makes us who we are. I believe Jesus misspoke. He should not have said, "Be ye perfect," but be yourself and do that well. about Oliver Wendel Holmes. Oliver Wendell Holmes, 1809 to 1894, was an American physician, inventor, professor, and poet, and acclaimed as one of the best writers of his day. Born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Holmes trained at medical schools in Paris and earned his doctorate at Harvard, where he later taught. He published several books of prose and poetry in his lifetime. His most famous poems include Old Ironsides, the Deacon's Masterpiece, and The Chambered Nautilus. His most famous prose work is The Autocrat of the Breakfast Table, a series of topical essays printed in the Atlantic Monthly, which he helped found and named. Despite his success as a writer, he never quit his day job as professor and medical reformer. He compared the intoxicating pleasure of authorship to a sickness. There is no form of lead poisoning which more rapidly and thoroughly pervades the blood and bones, he wrote. Holmes had 3 children, including Oliver Jr., the longest-serving justice on the United States Supreme Court.